Hi everyone, I am Amy Vetter, and welcome to the Breaking Beliefs podcast, where anything can be possible, because when you believe you can, you will. This series is all about getting honest with ourselves and noticing the things that we carry with us. We each have our own life experiences to go from, and sometimes it's hard to truly understand what it's like to be someone else. What we can do to create change is to start with us. If each of us took one action each day in our own lives, we could collectively change the world around us. But what does it take? It takes work, it takes practice, and we have to be honest with ourselves as we get there. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs, where I interview Kim Reed. She is the VP Director of the Project Management Office at Dollar Bank. She has worked as a Senior Manager Technology Solution Consultant and was previously with BNY Mellon for 25 years. She has a bachelor's degree in Computer Information Systems and a master's degree in Internet Information Systems. She loves to mentor others in addition to helping new project managers build their careers in project management. She has mentored with the PA mentoring of high school students and Robert Morris University college juniors and seniors. Giving back to the community is important to her, and she enjoys serving as the president of the Shaler Area Education Foundation. She is a past president of PMI Pittsburgh. This interview is one of those interviews that you will remember, and we talked about everything from her childhood family, where they were dependent on food stamps, to how she overcame her past to create a future of her own that included a successful career and a family. I hope you enjoy this podcast, and I do hope that you share it with people that can learn from the lessons that Kim shares during her story. Of Breaking Beliefs, and today I am with Kim Reed. Kim, before we get started, would you like to just give a little background on yourself?
Sure, thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you today. So I'm the director and VP of the Project Management Office for Dollar Bank. I've been here about a year and a half. Before that, I worked for a large bank for about 25 years. So lots of banking and project management background for me.
Awesome. So, what we do in this podcast is really kind of talk about life stories. Everyone's got one.
Yeah.
And, really the things that where we began and how that's evolved over time into our belief systems, what's worked, what hasn't worked, in our careers and personal life. So would love to just get started of where did you grow up? What did your parents do? Just a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah, it really does make me who I am for sure. Interesting. I was raised by a single mother, and we didn't have very much money at all, and there wasn't really the idea that I would ever end up where I am today, which is kind of fun. So through school, I think the thing that I was bullied. Unfortunately, I hate to say that, but I was. And so there was a lot of, not a lot of friendships, just trying to kind of get through school. I did go to college, but that didn't quite stick. So I went for a little while and then ended up working until I finally figured out, kind of found my place. And that has really made a difference for me, which we'll talk about. But I went on to get my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, lots of different certifications, and really focused on education and on creating those families, those connections with people.
Well, awesome. So, gosh, so much to unpack there. So let's start from the beginning. Where did you grow up? What city? And
Yeah.
what did your mom do?
Yeah. So I grew up in Pittsburgh. That's where I am today. And my mom, she didn't work. So we did a lot of things with, very little income. We lived with my grandmother who, was on like kind of Medicare, Medicaid, that kind of thing. So I didn't have all the fancy clothes or, that's probably part of the reason why I had a little bit of bullying and not really fitting in. I just, my heart always goes out to kids who I see are in that same situation. That's kind of one of the things I'm passionate about.
So did you know your father?
I did not, but I actually just found him
Oh, wow.
on Ancestry.
Oh, okay.
just a few months ago. He unfortunately passed away in 2020, but I have some siblings out there.
Oh,
So
wow. So have you reached out to them
I've
yet?
talked to a cousin, but I haven't reached out to the siblings yet because I'm trying to figure out what do you say?
Yeah. So interestingly, I had a good friend that went through this
Really?
process, but had it was her mother that she was looking for, and starting with Ancestry and a lot of these DNA
Yep.
companies, and then figuring it out on Facebook. She actually, I think, worked with a consultant that helped with how do you reach out and communicate
Oh,
without scaring
yeah.
somebody, or whatever. So I didn't realize there were people out there
I
that
didn't
did
either.
that and helped her craft her communication to her mother. And
Oh.
it was very cool. And then, same situation. Her mom had never told her family that she had had another child because she was shamed, growing
Hmm.
up. And so basically, once she told the family and they were all so accepting, she got back to her and now she's got a whole nother family. So you never know how it's going to work out. But yeah, maybe look into that because that
Yeah.
was really helpful for her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. So was your mom young or was she?
No, she was older. She was 40 when she had me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and I think that was, I think, he was married. So
Oh, okay.
all of that. So I think that was some of it. And, I didn't know anything about my father. Or that's kind of where it was, I didn't know if I wanted to meet anyone. I wasn't quite sure. I didn't think that through. I just was wondering, what's my nationality, that kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that started. Yeah.
Well,
So
and so when you were young, did that leave questions in your head, or
yeah, for
what
sure.
was that like as a child? Were you like making up stories about who he was, or yeah,
Nothing so cool. I wasn't quite that creative. I just knew I didn't have one, and I think that again made me who I am, that longing or looking for someone to kind of fill that up or figure out the other piece of me. Um,
yeah,
you know, so that's kind of maybe looking for a father figure somewhere. I don't know. That might have been some of it
yeah,
as a child. Hmm.
yeah. And I get that and I think what's really hard for kids too is I had a strained relationship with my father. I mean, I knew him, but I
Hmm.
didn't see him from the time I was 16 till probably 32, and it was
Hmm.
strained before that. And the hard part is in school when they do like father daughter dances and it's Father's Day and they just assume everything is a
Yeah.
good experience. And so it leaves you kind of to really get good with yourself
Yeah.
during those times.
Yeah. You're right. The family tree project. I only had.
Uh,
I don't know anything else. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's such an important lesson too, I think, throughout life is you never know what you're saying or something can be, out of the goodness someone isn't assuming it's hurtful.
Right.
But it's all about inclusion when you're thinking about those things is when you haven't walked in those shoes or gone through those experiences,
Yes.
something meant to not harm can harm.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, it was
So
tricky.
how'd you talk about it with the kids around you at school?
I don't, a lot of things I don't remember when I was really young. I just know I've always said the same thing as I never knew who my father was.
Yeah.
And usually people, they might look at you funny, but there's not much else they can say after that.
And then you're kind of in the place to make them feel better because it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Okay, though,
Yeah.
right.
So tell me a little bit about your mom and your grandmother. So why wasn't your mom working?
She took care of my grandmother. So my grandmother was blind.
Oh, okay.
And so she took care of her. And that was, she got kind of an allowance from her mother. And so that was kind of how it worked.
And then what was your relationship like with your grandmother?
It was good. Yeah, she was tough for sure. Definitely in charge of the house, but we got along, unfortunately, because we had a common enemy sometimes, my mother as a teenage kid. Yeah, she's doing things wrong. I know. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, and of course she's the caretaker, right? Like that's the
Both
other
of us.
side of it
Yeah.
is yeah,
Yeah.
like make her the enemy. So with your grandmother, what was your grandmother's story? Like was she always blind or?
No, she had cataracts and the surgeries didn't go well. So, so that was difficult for her. She thought, thinking she could see more than she could was a struggle, certainly for her.
So what did you learn from that, being around someone blind and seeing?
Yeah, well, it's certainly difficult. I really have a respect for folks. Anytime they have any, even if it's, having a physical issue like that, but even people who are from a different country, speak another language. I mean, they have more skills. I think I don't see them as someone with something missing. I see them with an extra special skill that maybe we don't have. So
Right.
she used her hearing, she could hear everything. You couldn't get away with anything because she heard. No sneaking out. Um,
Yeah.
and also a sense of smell. If you were somewhere around people that were smoking or she knew she could smell. So I think it's the same with people with different languages too, right? They can speak two languages. Maybe they're not great with English, but it's a skill. So
And what you have to use to offset not having one or the
mm-hmm.
other. Yeah, that's interesting. So, and then you said that you were poor. So what did that mean? Like when you say, the clothes you were wearing, or
Yeah.
did your mother or grandmother make your clothes, or were you getting it from
Yeah.
Goodwill, or what?
Yeah. So it was, it was not secondhand. So it wasn't that bad, or I wasn't, in that situation. But we had food stamps for the food, for my clothing. I would go to Hills was a department store, so I would get those things. I had one pair of shoes, like, two pair of jeans, that kind of thing. So, and they were not designer by any means, or wasn't at the mall getting those things. So it made it a little difficult.
Yeah.
When that's so important.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So for you, not having that role model, who were you looking to learn from or to model yourself?
Yeah, that was the hard part. I had a neighbor who she was going to school to get her master's degree because my mother only went to the 8th grade. She didn't even graduate from high
Oh,
school.
wow.
So I didn't, they didn't really have high hopes, excuse me, that I, whatever kind of finish college or any of those things. So I had a neighbor who was going to school to get her master's degree at night. And that was fascinating to me. So I thought, maybe that's a path I should take.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she was only probably 30 maybe.
Mhm.
So I kind of would go to her house and watch, see kind of what she was doing. She was studying at night.
So, what did you dream of being? So, it's interesting. I was just listening to a podcast on this, and the person on the podcast was talking about when we're born, we have no programming.
Mhm.
And, it's like a computer. There's no, software implemented on it, and so forth. And then whatever the limiting beliefs are of the people around us, that becomes our programming. If people feel like they're always going to be poor, that the world's against them,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Like those are the messages you're hearing, and that becomes your programming. So,
Yeah.
as far as having that environment around you, and I'm sure your mother, with not having a spouse and everything else, that
Mhm.
that and taking care of her mother, what is it that you dreamed about doing, and why did you dream something different than what
Yeah.
was expected?
The one thing I didn't want to be, it sounds terrible, but I didn't want that. I didn't want to be poor. I didn't want to be relying on, someone else. I didn't want people to feel bad or sorry for me
Hmm.
because I did not like that feeling for sure. So I was determined that whatever it took, I would make sure I could support myself. And I didn't know what path, at the time, because I didn't really see a lot of different careers, right? I saw
Right.
teachers and I didn't really want to do that.
Right.
wasn't for me. You know, so I knew I kind of liked computer stuff. So that's kind of how I decided to move in that direction. Yeah.
Yeah. So so what age do you think that was where you're like, I don't want to rely on anyone? Like you're seeing the use of food stamps and Medicare and all that stuff. So why was it that
As
you
long as
thought that wasn't a good thing?
it was embarrassing. I remember going to, getting a free lunch. And so I didn't eat lunch. I wouldn't eat lunch because I didn't want a free lunch. That was embarrassing. I didn't, you had like, I think it was a ticket or something. So everyone knew it wasn't going to be for me. I wasn't going to do that. When we would go to the doctor's office, we would have a card, because we didn't pay for anything. And that was embarrassing. I thought everybody knew, and maybe they did. I don't know, but I didn't. That was awful.
Wow. And it is interesting the difference, it is, nature versus nurture of the fact that you felt that was wrong when that's all you knew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah. So what is it that embarrassed you if that's all you knew? Like what was it that you were looking around at that you felt embarrassed about it?
Probably, my friends, the people that, or I shouldn't say friends, but the people I went to school with, of course, TV, right? That was any sitcoms or things you watched, big houses, people would have, new furniture and had cash. So
Yeah.
that really drove me, maybe still does, just to say, I want to make sure I have money that if I want to go to the store and buy something today, I can go and buy something. I can go buy new clothes or food or take my friends to lunch or take my family out.
So
And
when not having that vision of how you were going to get there, just knowing, I guess as your personal purpose, I'm going to get over this. I'm going to find a way, which is a lot inside of you to have that on your own and fight for that. When was it that you saw an interest, like you're saying, computers? Did you start working on computers in high school or?
no. So I went to, I was kind of follow the person that, so I had a friend in high school and she was going to go to the college I ended up graduating from, but she said, well, I'm going to go to Robert Morris. My dad works in finance and, that's a safe path. That's a good career. So I thought, okay, well, I'll try that too. So I kind of followed along with her. And that's when, even then, because I didn't have that set, like it's going to be IT that I'm going to be, directed towards, I was struggling to figure it out. So I stopped. I went to college. I went to Art Morris. I stopped. I went to Pitt. I thought maybe I'll do law. So I went to a different school. I would quit for a while and just work. So I really didn't have a vision of what I wanted to do probably until I was 26, maybe. So I was a late bloomer.
Well, and I don't think that's late. That's one of those things, like so much pressure is put on, I've got a son graduating this year,
Yeah.
Going to school, and you have to make this decision about your life and,
No.
and just thinking about, where I began and I was in accounting to what I do now. I'm still serving the accounting profession and so much more, but you couldn't have imagined your career path at 18,
No.
So so when you would stop, what was it that would make you stop going to college? Was there self-talk happening at that point, or that could you hear your mom?
Well, I think that, and I think, I didn't have friends. So when I made friends and maybe they wouldn't have wanted to stay out and have fun and not go to class, I was like, okay, because friendship was so important because I didn't have that for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I was looking outside myself for those connections. And I kind of followed along.
And then what would make you stop going to school?
I think because they would be, let's go out and party or let's skip class and go to lunch. And then it was like, well, I've skipped too many now. I probably need to stop. And
Yeah. And so what did you do? What kind of work when you would
I
stop?
worked at a department store. I did that for a while. And I worked at a shoe store, sold shoes. And then I got my job. I worked at a grocery store and I was really good at 10 key data entry. And so someone saw me and said, you could come and work at the bank. We have positions, where you could do that. You're pretty fast. And that's kind of how I started to work. Yeah.
So what's funny about that is there's a whole generation that has no idea what you're talking about.
I know.
Um,
I
I
know.
remember, and even when computers stopped having the keypad on the side, I'd have a plug-in thing, and you'd like cover your hand. Like the whole thing was to figure out how fast you could
Right.
go and know where the numbers were. So
Right.
who noticed you? What? And this is really important. Like,
Yeah.
why was that person noticing you?
It was interesting. Her name was Raynell Adams, and she's still, I still talk to her occasionally. She said, I changed your life, and she did. Uh, so she noticed she was working. So she was at the bank full time, and then she was working in the evenings at the grocery store. And she said they were always looking for people, and I seemed friendly, which is another key to, what I think has helped me so far. But that was some of she just kind of noticed me. I struck a good conversation with her, and she said, "Hey, why don't you apply?"
And then what was it that you applied for?
It was a data entry operator, which yes,
Yeah.
no one knows what that is. And I
What
did
was it that you did?
yeah, so I did that. I just processed payments for companies. I did that for a little bit, but I was good at it, and I was friendly, and I was always on time. And so I started to get promoted to shift supervisor and manager. And then that's when the company, it was a big bank, did tuition assistance. And so I thought, okay, this is silly for me not to finish if they're going to pay for some of it. So that's why it took me so long, because they did, a smaller portion, but I just kind of did part-time until I finished.
And what did you go for?
And my undergrad is in computer information systems networking, and my
Mhm.
master's is in internet information systems. So I've got the hardware and the software side.
You went at night then, I guess.
I
Using that
did.
example of, yeah. Um, and then, so what bank was this?
Was Mellon, but now it's BNY Mellon. That's right.
Oh, okay.
25 years. So yeah.
So they had the tuition assistance. You went back to the same college you had started
I did.
at
Yeah.
Was that Robert Morris?
Yeah. Morris
Yeah.
University.
Um, and so when did you decide to get your master's? Why did you
It
decide to
was an
do that?
integrated program, so I only had to add on an extra year, and I'd be able to get both degrees at the same time. So I thought, okay, well, I'm here. I might as well finish it off. And I
Yeah.
graduated, yeah, with both degrees, and I was pregnant with my third child.
Oh, wow.
Got married in there too.
Oh, okay. And where did you meet your husband?
At Mellon, BNY Mellon. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
Wow, she
another
really
reason.
did change your life. Yeah. Um, so when you came back, had the masters and everything, what changed about your career at the bank? So,
It was interesting. I could see the change, like the things that I saw people, levels higher than me talking about. I understood now, so I kind of had that same language. And so once I got my degree, I moved up 3 different positions to project manager finally within maybe a year and a half.
mhm.
And so, it was like every time I get a job, they would say, you know what, you're doing a good job. The person who you report to, they're going to do something else. How about you take that job?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you wanted to be a project manager?
I really liked it because I'm organized. People, I like people, and I want people to feel connected. And I also like that it changes all the time.
I find it inspiring that you like people when you've been bullied.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a belief system you have to break over time when you've had a bad experience like that. And I do think it's what sets people apart that can withstand hard things
Mhm.
is to not think the world's horrible,
Yeah.
where you still have hope.
Yeah.
So, why do you think you have hope? Why do you think you have that?
I think it's inside of me. No, but I,
Uh-huh.
I, I am always optimistic. Maybe people get annoyed with that, but I always think there's a way out. I mean, I feel like I've solved some pretty big problems for me, right? Financially, I'm kind of doing okay. I got through that poverty. I didn't end up on drugs or, and any of those things that could have happened. I mean, I
Mhm.
think of the way my life could have gone. And so I think, man, if I can do that, we can do anything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I do think, that there is a choice when
Mhm.
we have hard things happen is to blame it for all the bad things that happen after, where we kind of take responsibility for our life and say, it's up to us to
Yeah.
change the future. And it's a hard thing to go about. So what do you think now? And first, I'll say as a parent, because it's hard when you don't have that example. And
Mhm.
now, as a parent, you've got three children. How old are they?
They are 22, 20, and 16.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and make that conscious decision to do it differently. So, how did you go about making that decision, and what do you watch about yourself?
Yeah, I think having kids for sure. One of the saddest things to me is when kids are bullied, sometimes they don't see that there's hope, right? Whatever they're bullied for, they don't see that things can be different. So I always made sure my kids knew, first of all, never to bully anyone, because I had an experience, but also to help those kids. And so some of the proudest things for me is I saw my son stick up for someone. He didn't know I was watching, but to like, don't do that. Like, we just don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes such a difference. I think, hey, if you can help one person, maybe that kid will remember that. Maybe that'll change the path that he's on. So I always want my kids to know that, which they do. And
Yeah.
that change, right? Even the bad things, they're not going to last forever.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. My son does a lot of, like, they have sibs where he
Yep.
help other kids in the school and these big rock um, initiatives. He does same thing about bullying, and it's hard because some of the initiatives, like, I talk to him about it because they go to like, they're in high school, but they go to the middle school once
Yeah.
a year, and then if there's anyone sitting alone, they go sit with them. But I was like, is that good, or is it?
I know.
I'm not sure, because you, just like you said, you were embarrassed to go
Yeah.
use your food stamps or whatever. Does that point out that that kid is by themselves?
Right.
Because someone went and targeted them. But
Yeah. No, it's
it's one of
right.
those things where it's just like you're trying to do a good thing, but is it? You don't know. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, it's tough. It is tough. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
But I think it's so important to have that awareness and try to give back. And I think that is such a good example. Where do you see that the lessons you've learned, you use it in your leadership style or in your family or with your spouse
Yeah.
now?
For sure. I'm always trying to make sure I'm a better leader. I want to make sure, again, everyone feels they're a part of the team. So I
Hmm.
think that is a lot of from my childhood. I didn't want anyone to feel excluded. So I think that helps. I think my team feels connected. They actually all have lunch together every Tuesday, which I love.
Yeah.
It's like that connection. And I always want to see them move forward in their career. So I want to know what it is they want and try to help them get there. We talk about mentorship, but I think it's more about sponsorship and making sure you're taking them with you. And that's what I try to do, whether it be at PMI, I want to help people to get the job that they want, or, here at Dollar Bank for sure. And that's why I like Dollar Bank. That's really their motto too, is to help the community, because we're a community bank. So.
How did you end up there? We kind of jumped around, but
Oh, yeah. So again, it was the connections, the friendships I made. I was working, I did a 2-year stint as a consultant because I thought, well, I've never done this before. Let's go try
right.
this.
Yeah.
And I made a friend who was consulting here, and he said, they have an opening and you might be interested. And then I met my boss, who is the greatest guy. If I had to pick someone to be a father figure, like, he would be it. He's really smart. He's great. And we talked, my interview was supposed to be an hour. It was 2 hours, and we probably could have kept talking. And I was like, yeah, this is where I belong. So
So
that's,
do you ever feel like, and what you have to do mentally, I mean, from all those years of getting bullied or not having friends or feeling alone, do you ever have that rise up in you where you have to get rid of the self-talk, and what do you do to get rid of it?
yeah, it happens. I think when, sorry, when, anyone is, there's laughter, and as you walk by or something, you always have that, like, is that me? What's happening? So always think back to, like, you are not in fourth grade, you're an adult. That is not, they're not laughing at you. It really just takes a minute to look inside. Of course, I still check to make sure nothing's hanging out that shouldn't be. But after that, just really looking inside is a key for me, instead of looking outside for validation or to make sure.
Do you meditate, or
I
what do you
do. I do meditate. Yeah. And I do
so what
yoga.
does that practice look like?
Yeah, I do yoga too. So I use the Peloton app. So sometimes it's to get to sleep. I've actually, my kids do it too when they're nervous or have to, are stressed. And I think a lot of things, like even moving positions, will sometimes help if you're in a stressful situation, or taking the shoulders down. I meditate usually in the afternoon at home. If I'm working from home, sometimes that's what I'll do for lunch. And it's not long. Need to probably increase that, but just 5 or 10 minutes, depending on the thing, or sometimes before sleep, I'll do that as well.
Yeah. And the thing with meditation, there's no
Wrong way.
no, never. And it's more about like that you actually got the release or the observation of what's happening. So if you, through your practice, if you've observed yourself having that negative self-talk, is there any mantras or words that help you to get out of it?
Usually yeah, I don't know if there is. I don't know. I guess there should be, but I don't have any that I can think of.
Or it's your breath, or what is it?
Yeah, I definitely
focus
I focus on breathing for sure.
Yeah.
Because short, shallow, like, okay, you need to stop doing that. Like, deep breaths and breathe in for sure. Makes such a difference. You can feel that.
Yeah, it's amazing how we have this natural way to reset. So your story is really inspiring. So thank you for being so open and with the audience, because I think it's really important for people to hear those stories. It's everyone walks around and sees you as you, but they don't know, that we're all walking around with stories, right? So I'd like to ask a rapid fire question. So if you pick a category, so it's either family and friends, money, spiritual, or health.
Family and friends.
Okay. I love it. Things or actions I don't have that I want.
I think more time to spend with my family and friends. I get so busy. I volunteer a lot. I think it's all the whole trying to be connected and making sure I'm helping others, that I don't have as much time with family and friends. And once I do it, like last night, we had a big birthday. My husband and I, our birthdays are a day apart. So we've been celebrating for the last 2 days, and we had friends come and meet us. And it was like, oh, I need to do this more often.
Yeah. And where do you volunteer? We didn't get that.
For PMI. I also volunteer for my school district, Shaler Township. I'm the president of the Education Foundation.
Oh, okay.
And that's where I get to say, hey, let's give to the kids who, might be sitting by themselves or sitting in the corner.
Oh, that is awesome. That you even want to be back in that.
It's crazy, right?
But you face it and change the narrative. Right? Like when you're going back and you see it a different way than you did as a child. So that's awesome. Things or actions I do have that I want to keep.
All the friends I have a lot of friends. I have great friends. Even the people I work with, I think are my, work with me. So that for sure is important to me and my family.
Yeah. Things or actions I don't have that I don't want.
Little kids. So and I'm glad I had 3 of them, but that whole like toddler when they can't say anything, that's not for me.
I'm the same way. I really enjoy my friendships with my kids as a
yeah, me too, for sure.
Things or actions that I do have that I don't want.
Being full-time everywhere is probably a lot. So, being, it's great to have friends and I love it, but it's, trying to make those appointments, make sure I keep up with them because I don't want to lose those connections. Work is pretty darn demanding. So making sure I'm, if I could have more time for those things, that might be great.
So is there any one thing I just realized we didn't come back around of just kind of as an adult with your mom and your grandmother, how did that resolve? Did they understand the path that you took? And supportive of it, or was it
They
really
didn't really.
foreign?
They didn't really understand. Even now, when you tell someone you're a project manager or PMO director, they don't know what that is. No idea. That's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
I think they just wanted the best for me, I hope. And that's,
Yeah, that's all that you can ask for.
yeah.
So, is there anything that we didn't talk about, or you want to make sure that people walk away from this conversation with as we conclude?
Yeah, I just hope, you look inside of yourself. Everyone says that, but really, don't give up. Anything you want to do, you really can. You just have to put your mind to it. And, everybody finds a path in a different way. And all these things sound like, cliches, but, I was always looking for someone else to tell me how to get to this seat. Or how did you do it? That I spent a lot of time. How did you do it? But everyone's path is different. So you have to make sure you're on the right one for you.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being a guest today and sharing your story.
Thank you. It was so fun to talk to you. Thanks so much.
Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. I hope you will take a moment to pause before entering back into your day to reflect on this podcast and note 1 to 2 actions you are inspired to do from today's conversation that you could incorporate into your life. To read the full blog and listen back to this episode or any other, you can find them at www.amyvetter.com/Breaking Beliefs podcast and related videos on my YouTube channel. For daily inspiration, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Amy Vetter CPA. I hope that you will choose to like this and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and more so that you can join us for more inspiration on our next episode.